Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we are finally diving into the world of HP Lovecraft, and I'm going to make a baby Cthulhu because making a real Cthulhu I don't have enough oven space for. So we're going to make a baby version, a cute version, because I feel like I do well in the cute realm. So I'm literally going to start with his head, which is an aluminium ball. Cover that in some of my polymer clay, and then I picked out these two lovely red eyes. They're made of glass. You can get those off of Amazon. I'll leave a link in the description. And then yeah, we're going to start with the head and all of the little details. For those of you that don't know who Cthulhu is, one, what rock have you been living under? And two, how can you not know who Cthulhu is? He's kind of like epic. Obviously, I'm making the cute version, but Cthulhu generally is supposed to be absolutely petrifying. He was originally written by HP Lovecraft in like 1928, so he's like almost 100 years old. So if you don't know who he is, now is the time to find out. HP Lovecraft described him as a monster of vaguely anthropod outline, but with an octopus-like head whose face was a mass of feelers, a scaly, rubbery-looking body, prodigious claws on hind and forefoot, and long, narrow wings behind. I just read that from the Wonders, that is Wikipedia. But yeah, he's like this giant creature from his own little world. Literally, he comes from a world that's named after him, actually. It's Cthulhu mythos, where he lives with all these other nasty beasties from the realms of like HP's mind. So yeah, he's an interesting character. The whole story sets around like a detective and trying to find like the cultists of Cthulhu. It's really good. So if you ever get a chance to, have a little look, then you should definitely have a little look into Lovecraft because his writings are epic. Halfway through doing his head, I decided that I wanted to move on to the body now. I swear I don't have the attention span to do things all at once. I don't know why. So yeah, I decided to move on to his body. I literally did the same thing. Ball of foil, well, bean of foil, covered it in clay, and then I'm using a kebab skewer to attach his head to his body. I do think I might have been being smart whilst I was sculpting, because to have attached his tentacle mush to his head would have kind of got in the way of me attaching his head to the body. So in hindsight, I was being smart, even though I hadn't actually thought of that when I was doing it. I wanted to make him look kind of cute and podgy, because like babies are always cute and podgy, so I'm giving him a belly and he needs some chubby moobs to give him his little, I don't know, dragon-esque body. To make his legs, I literally just made like these teardrop shapes of clay. I made them cute and chunky looking. And then I just sort of blended them on to what kind of at the minute looks like a dragon version of Sonic the Hedgehog with no mouth. But yeah, I made lots and lots of toe beans by making tiny little balls of clay and then just sort of smooshing those onto the feet. And then as you can see to the left of him, there is lots and lots of pre-baked claws. The reason that I pre-bake them is because it's so much easier to just sort of stab in hard claws than it would be to try and sculpt teeny tiny claws onto them without squashing everything. So my advice to you is to always pre-bake like teeth and claws and all those little bits that would be very difficult to add in afterwards, because as you can see here, I'm struggling with just the baked version. With his hand claws, I noticed that they were like way too long. He would have had like these giant Freddy Krueger blades on his hands, so I just sort of chopped them down a little bit and then popped them back in. If you make claws that are too big, literally you'll just use a sharp blade and you'll be able to cut your clay down that way rather than remaking loads of claws. To make all of his tentacles, I'm literally just rolling out some tapered pieces of clay, and then balling up some very tiny little balls of clay, attaching that to the tapered piece of clay, and then using a ball stylus to sort of turn them into stuckers by poking a hole in. Nice and easy. But do that before attaching it to your sculpture, because if you do it whilst it's attached, you're going to have fun trying to get into all of those tiny little nooks and crannies once you've I don't know, made the tentacles all wiggly looking. So it's easier to do it that way. So I was actually thinking ahead when I didn't put them on his head. I feel proud of myself now. To make his head flap gill ear thingy mabobs, whatever they are, I literally used a little bit of floral wire that I twisted on itself just to make it a little stronger, and then using my cosplay I sculpted said ear flap head gill things. And then to attach them I just sort of jammed them into the side of the head and then used a little bit of clay to just sort of stabilise it so that it was nice and in there so it wasn't going to fall out. I did the same for his wings as well, just used a bit of floral wire, twisted it in on itself and then stabilised everything with clay. So it looks kind of complicated but it's really not. The bigger the wings that you're going to do though, the heavier gauge wire you'll need, so just think about that when you're making. If you're making a small one, floral wire will do fine, but if you're going to be making something big, use sturdier wire. My cosplay has like this weird marble effect going on at the minute because I've mixed in a little bit of my super sculpey as well. I was finding that the cosplay was a little bit too soft, so just to try and make it a little less squishy, I added a little bit of my super sculpey into it, which really did help, and it didn't really affect too much on the cosplay either, so it still remained nice and bendy afterwards. I didn't have a problem with it. So if you do find that your cosplay is a little bit squishy, you can just add a little bit of another branded clay that's a little bit firmer, and that will sort of, I don't know, alleviate that issue of squish. So the idea of making 50 kajillion little scales individually kind of wanted me to go to an early grave rather than do that. So instead I used this tiny little circular cutter, which is, I think is made for like jewellery, polymerclay jewellery. I don't know, I've never really delved into that side of polymerclay, but I'm using them instead to create a nice scale texture. You could also perhaps make a texture roller, just, you know, using some scrap clay to make like a scaly texture, and then you could have rolled it on, but otherwise my method worked fine for me. Then I went on to make a base. This is literally a bit of bed slat. Honestly, my kids, their beds are fine. I didn't use a bed slat that they needed. And I just attached some polymer clay and Cthulhu to it, using a bit of bacon bond, and then I'm using some plaster of Paris rocks that I'd made from a previous video, and then I had made this really derpy looking skull. It's a terrible looking skull. Then I put everything in the oven for a bake, and finally it was time for painting. I'm using lots of different types of paint. There's no L in paint. Lots of different types of paint. But I will list the ones that I use the most in the description below if you would like to use them. But generally any acrylic will do. Even dirt cheap ones. I've used some really, really cheap paints before and it's worked fine. So before I start painting Cthulhu in his main colour, I would just like to say that I put out a poll on my YouTube community asking people whether I should paint him green or black. And by the time I started the painting, everybody had voted for green. And by the time I had finished painting, everybody had changed their mind and now wanted him in black. So I'm very, very sorry for the majority of people that wanted him in black. I went with green because I went with the vote at the time of painting. So I'm really, really sorry if you voted for black and he's now green. After I finished painting in all of the tiny little details, the shells and giving everything a wash, I gave his eyes a little scrape off to get any excess paint off. And then I got up at the crack of dawn and drove across the majority of England, all through different weathers and over some very nice places, all the way to the seaside so that I could take some really nice pictures with him. So I hope you have enjoyed the video, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one, guys. Thank you very much, and I will see you later. Bye!